Coffee. What's up, words? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live a little late. Getting a slow start. It's 8:33 in the morning here, 9/25, 2023 at Site B. It's about 73 degrees and hazy. And it's Monday, pretty sure, which means it's a Yum Kippur for all my fellow Jewish friends and family out there. Happy Day of Atonement, the closing of the Book of Life and an opening of a brand new chapter, brand new year, brand new news. That's right. See what I did there? It's Monday. It's time to set our course, chart our path, takes out our Sextant, Sextant, and see what tabletop notes playing for these news stories are shaping the environment for the next week. We're getting to the end of Q2, going into the final rush. You know, we got November, we got October, November, December. That's it. We're pretty much done. January, and then 2024, the biggie, the 50th anniversary. So you would assume that as con season's coming to an end, production is starting to slow down. We're starting to push towards that big holiday rush, end of the year, get our product ready for the 50th anniversary, because, you know, that's a thing that we as business people in the tabletop role-playing game community should be focusing on. So let's see if any news stories talk about that, and I can already tell you no. So, of course, we know we've got this thing coming out, in case you didn't know. Gotta hand it to these guys. Every day, they're pushing their stuff. That's why they're my Chad Gable. They're the workhorse. They may not be any good, but they're out there doing it every day. And the prices come down to $30. The Kickstarter should be done, and it should be going to shipping. So that's about it. Nothing really new on that. Times from Wizards of the Coast, we know that they have dropped the first bomb of Planescape, and over the weekend they released a community update. And in that community update, they discussed things like, oh, hey, all the plans we had for that VTT that you saw us premiere earlier in the year, even though that technically wasn't the VTT, well, those are on hold. We're putting everything on D&D Beyond for now, and you can pay us for the privilege of testing the brand new maps program, which apparently from the people who already have seen it, sucks. Also, we know that this is coming out. Should be the last main product for the year. Of course, we still have the Deck of Many Things coming out before the end of the year, but I think whatever interest in that might have existed has sort of been lost because of Mackenzie, but that's a topic for another time. Right now, they're focusing on this thing, Planescape, and what we can and cannot expect from Planescape. And so far, what we've read, it feels like it's a lot like Spelljammer in that it'll have a lot of art. It'll sort of, but not really cover anything. I think best case scenario, it'll be harmless. It won't really add anything. It won't really subtract anything. People who already have Planescape or can be like, I've already got this. I don't need this. People who don't have Planescape can go, well, I could pay $50, $60 for this, or I could get it for like $14 on drive-through. Is it that much different? We haven't heard any that's racist commentary yet regarding this, but in regards to the whole AI art thing, Wizards of the Coast wants us to understand very clearly that they will not accept any AI art from outside sources, but there's nothing stopping them from using AI art if they want to, as long as they don't get caught. In regards to that, if you have a copy of Against the Giants, or whatever it was called, Bigby's Guys to Giants, in your D&D Beyond bookcase, you might want to go and check it to see if anything was changed, because over the weekend, Wizards of the Coast let us know that they went in and changed all the questionable art and content in the D&D Beyond version of Giants. Now, as for the people who have the physical content for the Giants and with the questionable, controversial art, they're not saying you should get the new one when they reprint it with the correct art, but they're not saying you shouldn't. And much like they have done in the past, it's basically going to be sort of a silent shaming, kind of like with D&D 3 and D&D 3.5. I mean, you don't have to play 3 and 3.5. You don't have to buy 3.5. We're not going to make any product that supports 3, and everything we make going forward is going to say D&D 3.5. And we're kind of sort of subtly going to try and make this whole little like shame thing, like, oh, shame on you. Same thing, so they do. Same thing they did with 4th. Oh, we don't think you should, but I mean, yeah. So, again, if you have it on D&D Beyond, you might want to check it this morning, and you might find that it looks different than it might have looked on Friday because they went in and changed it, and they didn't tell you. We've got our friends over at Artisolians released some new product for Cyberpunk. We've got this being announced, and this is my vote for Tabletop Role-Playing Game of the Year, Duckborg. Now, I had a recent conversation with somebody about Duckborg and how it was like baby's first heavy metal death art role-playing game, which I guess assumes that there were heavy metal inspired death art role-playing games before Morkborg. I think the problem with Morkborg is when it won Tabletop Role-Playing Game of the Year, it basically won it for the art. And then once you'd actually do the research and look into the artwork that was in there, you realize that, it's not that it's not that influential. It's not that groundbreaking. It's basically just, cheap image manipulation. Here, let's put this image upon this image and make it black. And most of those images are public domain from the medieval public domain art, and they just tweaked it. So yeah, Morkborg took itself too seriously and too niche, too gimmicky. One tabletop role-playing game for the year. And then a lot of people who went into Morkborg and played it realized, well, okay, I'm going to make fun of this by, cutting it up and reprinting it. So there was Cyborg, which was Morkborg Cyberpunk. There was Pirateborg. There was Morkborg Pirate, which is actually more popular than straight Morkborg. And then you began to see the fraying of the edges with Borkborg. And now we have Duckborg. So now I think the Morkborg bandwagon is, let's make fun of this genre that doesn't exist. This heavy metal, dark, grim apocalypse. This is how we played in the 80s. It's like, no one fucking played like that in the 80s, okay? You're not recreating the genre with your cheap-ass heavy metal art and your all black on black book. So I think that's why Duckborg and Pirateborg and Borkborg were so popular. Yeah, not much else. This seems to be the story to watch from everything I'm hearing so far. Is the Final Fantasy XIV tabletop role-playing game. A lot of stuff being attached to it. A lot of people are saying this is the horse they're going to back in 2024 instead of 5e or instead of any of the other 5e things. It's not a 5e adjacent system. I believe it's a D6 system. It comes with a lot of free stuff. The big questions are, of course, is it going to come with a free account to the MMORPG? How is it going to have stats for the important characters of the Final Fantasy franchise, like Cloud? And I think for most of us who are familiar with Final Fantasy, is it going to have rules for ridiculously huge swords the size of telephone poles? Because it's Final Fantasy. Are we going to see a staff block for Sephiroth? And are we going to have rules for how to make and justify Cloud Sword? So yeah, this could be the new one. This could be take the place of Level Up 5e as my people's champ. Right now, it's getting nothing but good buzz. So we'll see what happens with this. Yeah, there's not much else going on. We do have some news, of course, from Paizo. The playtesting for the Pathfinder War of the Immortals has reached the halfway point. I don't know what that means. It means you can still jump on and playtest the I'm not Maui and the I'm a druid, but I'm not a druid class. Everybody I've talked to doesn't see the point of these classes. Everybody's been, I only heard one person said more classes the better. But then when I specifically continued the conversation with them about these two, they agreed with me that they're not classes on their own. They're just sub builds for existing classes. You know, the Animus is just a sub build for Druid, or maybe no, it's a Druid. And then the Exemplar is just either a weird take on Paladin or a sub build for Barbarian. Or it could, you know, it might be like if they still had prestige classes, I would say the Exemplar is an example, exemplar example of what a prestige class used to be. But they don't exist anymore. So I don't know what you'd call it. The closest thing they're calling it a rare class. And when we tried to get clarification both from the outside world and from people who have played Pathfinder to try and clarify what a rare class would be. Because in video game terms, the rare character would be like you have to do all these things to unlock it, and then you get to play through the game again with the rare character, right? But in role-playing games, there's no really mechanics that reflect that the same way it would in a video game. What is it? If I go through the entire adventure of Keep on the Borderlands and unlock the Paladin class, does that mean I now can play through Keep on the Borderlands again playing a Paladin? I guess would be the closest way to do it. Or another way would be I won't allow this class to be played in my game until you perform a series of events that unlocks that class, which also sounds kind of dumb. I could understand it being like an reward and organized play, or like you know, but then again, it's just like you can't play this unless you've earned it, and it's like a Steve has earned the ability to play the Exemplar class, but the rest of you haven't. Or maybe they're in organized play, there can only be one Exemplar class per table. Otherwise, it makes no sense. What I don't understand what a rare class is. The best explanation people could agree upon was, well, the DM can tell you that class is not available in his game if he doesn't want it or she doesn't want it. The response is, well, she can say that about any class. The DM could decide, I'm not allowing druids because that's not the way this world is built. And you either agree, yes, we all agree that that's the mechanics of this world. There's no druid class. Or you're like, no, I really wanted to play a druid. I'm not going to play in this game, right? You could... So again, that doesn't make sense. So the rare class, as we think it understands, makes no sense. But the playtest is halfway through, so you still have a chance to go and jump on that and figure out what you think of this is not necessarily needs to be a class, and yeah, this doesn't really need to be a class either. If you're going to introduce a new class, it has to do something new, completely different than any other class, right? The alchemist can do something that nobody else can do, right? He's got his whole potion concoction mutagen thing, right? Nobody else can do that. There's classes that can kind of come close, but bits of, you know, but the tech guy is the only guy that can really do the robots and stuff. Nobody else can really do that. I mean, sure, my barbarian wizard could play around with it, but yeah. Now the trouble with it is neither of these really introduce a new mechanic that is unique to them. They're both just sort of mishmashes of pre-existing classes. We have a release of all the new stuff coming out from Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society, but we went over these on Friday, so nothing news. Also, Pathfinder wants us to know that they're still playtesting the changes to the wizard for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Core Rules Volume 2 with Electric Boogaloo with Bacon, and the general response to it has been negative so far, and I do not understand why, other than how dare you change something just to change something. Because I looked at the changes, and there's like, not that I have any grounds for comparison, but I don't see anything that's really that horrible. It just kind of reads like Wizards in Pathfinder 2nd Edition have read since Pathfinder 2nd Edition came out. It's overly complicated with lots of feats and notes and mechanics to do something that was relatively simple, but Paizo had to change it to be different. We don't want to violate any copyrights, so we're going to completely change everything so we're not in compliance with the OGGM. Mind you, all the things we're changing aren't copyrighted. So there's really no reason for them to do this other than money. we're going to change everything because we don't want to violate copyright. Like Dro. We don't want to use Dro. We might violate the copyright. You can't copyright Dro. Wizards of the Coast doesn't own the word Dro, Paizo. You could still have Dro, and nobody would be upset. You could still have Dark Elves, and you're not violating anything. The only thing you couldn't have is Drizzt. Wizards of the Coast owns the copyright to the very specific lore of the Dro in their world, but they don't own the word Dro or Dark Elf. So there was no reason for you to do this. Same thing with the Wizard. Wizards of the Coast doesn't own those words. You can't use Odaluk or Bigby, but the rest of it is public domain. Wizards of the Coast doesn't own the word wizard. So, yeah, is this changes because they really feel that they need to step away from the controversy of the OGL? Or is it just we're making changes for the sake of making changes because we want to make more money and we feel we're not competing? So we're going to release Pathfinder 2 Remastered Electric Boogaloo and do an entire campaign arc to explain the changes. That's the only thing I like about this, is the using the campaign arc to explain the changes. We were hoping that was what Wizards was doing with Phandelver to explain the changes and lead up to the year of Vecna, but so far, nope, that's not what Phandelver was about. After 14 years of hype and excitement and build up and final release, the big secret of what the Obelisk wore and the known unknown secret that Vecna was going to be the mastermind behind everything that you've hinted at since day one. Nope. That's it for the tabletop role-playing game news. We have set our course. We've charted our path. We've been able to get away with saying the word sextant without getting in trouble. What story are you most excited about for this week, this last week of September? Let me know. Until then, have a great day. If you haven't subscribed yet, you know what to do. Stay safe out there. Happy Yum Kippur. And I'll talk to you losers later. Get off my land, you